Hello and welcome back to A Splash of Paint. Now it's time to join SAA professional artist Mike Skidmore as he demonstrates how a combination of a few simple brushstrokes and the power of acrylics can add depth and tone to your oil portrait paintings in part one of today's Try Your Hand At project.
Hi, today I'm going to do a demonstration demonstrating the grey tone, or as it's known more formally, a grisaille. And I'm going to talk you through as I paint the process and how it works and why this is such a good way to work when producing portraits, and particularly when we're producing portraits that don't have a huge degree of light and dark. I'm using acrylics to begin with, although if you wanted you could do this with oils. I use acrylics and then paint with oils on top because it's a lot quicker. And in this day and age, because we've got things like slow drying medium to hold back the drying of the acrylic, we can use it very much like oil paint. So when I get to the second stage of the painting, I will then have a nice dry painting done quickly, onto which I can add the oils. Okay, I'm going to start with a bit of Payne's Grey and a little bit of my slow drying medium. And I'm just going to mix them up till I get to the point of density that I'm looking for, which is to put some darks onto the painting without obliterating what's underneath. Now I'm going to begin with the hair. Let me just try the paint there. Okay, that's just nice. That's going on top and it's leaving through what's going on underneath. Now, why do I start with the hair? Well, here's a bit of advice. Whenever you first start doing a painting, you're never in the zone. You're never at that point where you're kind of feeling that intuitive link between you and the artwork. You have to do some work to get to that point where things start to flow. So it's always useful to begin the painting on an area that is relatively easy, where you haven't got any significant challenges, where you know what you're going to do, and you can then work up to the dangerous areas. Because if you kick off working with a piece of the painting where the decisions you have to make are quite tricky, you do that straight away, you can be fairly sure that it's going to go wrong. Okay, now I've put some hair on there. I can see through everything I've done, which was the intention. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to add some more medium to that so that I can put some more tone in on the side of the face. Now, the reason grey tones work are several. And the most famous artist to use grey tones could arguably be Vermeer, who used to work onto canvas. He used to produce his pictures first using something like ivory black and white, and he would deal with all the tonal parts of the picture before he got onto colour, which is really the main advantage, because when you're doing this kind of stuff, in fact, when you're doing any kind of painting, the important thing is not just the technique that you've got or your ability, it's your confidence. If your confidence is high, you will do things beyond what you would expect of yourself. If your confidence is low, it will pull you in the opposite direction. So the great thing about doing a grey tone like this is it's an opportunity to work with the lights and darks, to gradually build your knowledge of the picture and to create a sculptural effect that doesn't have to take into account all of the final detail and the colour, and to build your confidence through knowledge of what you're going to do next once you get to the colour part of the picture. And it's quite an intuitive way to work, because if you think about it, most of us at some time or other have done done drawing have done art classes with charcoal or pencil, and because of that, this is a kind of halfway point between a drawing and a painting, and it will fall within our comfort factor a lot more than diving in to apply colour with oil paint onto a painting where we've had no time to really prepare. And talking about preparation, what I do in the first place is I do a pencil drawing, and I use a 2B pencil straight onto the canvas, and then I fix it with a little bit of white acrylic and water. And the reason I like to do that is because once I apply that white acrylic, it will effectively knock the pencil marks back so that I can just barely see them through the white. And that then allows me to make any corrections. I can redraw the picture, and I can make any corrections to the picture, deal with any areas that went wrong, and that will give me the chance to put them right, whilst at the same time avoiding that kind of nasty mess that you get when you use a rubber. And I might do that several times on a painting till I get to the point that I'm happy with the picture. And then with the final drawing or pencil that I've done onto the canvas or board, I put a wash of Payne's grey right over the top, and that then seals the pencil in place. And when that's dry, I draw into it with Payne's grey and a paintbrush, which is the line work you can see here. So what I'm now doing is I'm now just building up the tone of the picture to get a feeling for the kind of sculpture of it. And as I'm doing it, I'm looking at the shapes and I'm putting in my preparatory paintbrush marks so I can build the confidence to know what I'm going to do when I put colour on. Right, now what I'm going to do is just put my bigger brush to one side, and I'm just going to choose a smaller sable because I want to put a little bit more detail into some of the tonal areas. I'll start with the eyebrows because they're fairly easy. I've got a couple of darker areas there I've got to deal with. Now I just want to say something quickly about, in fact I think I'm going to have a rant. I can't remember how many times I've heard people say to me that they've been told not to use Payne's grey. I think the same applies to never using black and never use flesh tint from a tube. All I can say is that's a load of rubbish. Absolute load of rubbish. You should be able to use anything that you want to use that works for you. And a lot of these things that people are told, I think, tend to be driven from one person telling one person to telling another without any real consideration as to what they mean. I was challenged once about using Payne's grey, and somebody said to me, but you shouldn't use it. And I said, well, why? They said, well, because it mutes your colours. I went, so what if I want to mute my colours then? Does that mean I still shouldn't use it? To which they got all flustered and didn't have an answer. In other words, all of these rules that say you must not are generally designed by somebody who felt that was the right way for them and tries to enforce it on other people. So don't take any notice at all of things that are just told to you in a very black and white sense without a good explanation as to why. And it is one of my pet hates, this don't use Payne's grey thing, because you know what? Whenever you go to a shop to buy paint, or you go to buy it from the SAA, the paint they've got the least of is Payne's grey because everybody's buying it, yet we're all not supposed to use it. Anyway, that's my little rant out of the way. Let's finish off now getting some of these darker areas in place. Put a bit in the mouth there. Now, this might not be quite dry yet, but I'm actually using some Daler board here. and I've not used it before, apart from in the last couple of weeks, and I have to say, it's fab. I've not really been a great fan of boards in general in the past, but I absolutely love this stuff. It's what it does is it's quite a chalky surface, so when you're working with acrylics, you get a bit of texture, but at the same time, it takes a while to dry, so it leaves the paint much more useful for longer to work with. It's really nice stuff. I'm very pleasantly surprised. Now I'm just picking out a few of the areas where I know I'm going to have to add a bit more density as I start painting the next part of the picture. I just want to scrub in a bit more around his stubbly bits. Now, people often get a bit worried about painting things like stubble. The trick is not to get involved in the detail. The minute you start seeing it as a series of individual hairs, you end up giving yourself a bit of a nightmare, because you make a commitment to doing it that way and you've got to see it through. I find that as long as I just make a few random scrub marks with my brush, I'll get the effect that I'm looking for. There we go. Right, I'm about halfway through on this picture now, so if you join me later in the programme, I'll be finishing this stage of the picture off. Okay, thank you.
It's always great to watch Mike in action, and we look forward to seeing part 2 later on in today's programme. Well, folks, before we take a quick break, we've just got time to join popular artist and tutor Marion Dutton as she lifts the lid on some of her favourite tools and tricks in our regular feature, What's in Your Box?
So today I wanted to show you what's in my box. I use oil paints predominantly. We always start by lubricating the canvas. So I'm going to use some linseed oil. I'm going to just wet a little area here. Now I like to use these chiselled edge brushes simply because I really do believe that you can get some real detail. I'll use a variety of different sizes. I get watercolourists coming to me and they always want to use a round brush for finer details, but I really do believe you can get much better detail using a chisel brush. You can get a beautiful fine line, much finer than you could do if you were using a round brush. And this is great for sort of getting into the smaller areas like eyes and things like that. The larger brushes are great for covering distance. And again, also, just add a little oil on that to help it flow, for getting those really fine lines. Now, I also like to use soft blending brushes. A lot of the techniques I use involve blending, and these Hake brushes are absolutely perfect for that. And again, you get them in different sizes, and you can use these to just lightly soften any edges. Now, some of the techniques I use involve removing paint from the canvas, and these cotton buds are absolutely perfect for that. I like to dip one end in the thinner, and you can use that to actually remove paint from the canvas. Now, this is actually paper, so it's not working so great on there, but these do remove the paint and lift off the paint from the area that you're working on. And that's great for going back to the white of the canvas to create sort of lights and darks. One of the other essentials, I think, is plenty of kitchen towels, because you certainly use lots of them when you're painting.
Time for a quick break now, but join us in part 2 when we shine the spotlight on up-and-coming SAA professional artist and tutor Steve Williams in our regular introducing feature. And Warren Sealer drops by to demonstrate how to transform your pre-stretched canvases and canvas board to give your paintings a more professional finish. We'll see you soon.